Hello and welcome to another game analysis video. This time we've got some Dark Elves against some Khemri Tomb Kings. Before we get started, just want to again remind you, if you like this, please like and subscribe, that's very helpful. And you can also check my Patreon page, link below, which gives a list of all of the articles and videos I do, just all collected into one space. And then there's some Patreon exclusive tactics guides relevant to the Blood Bowl World Cup that's happening, the NEF World Cup in Austria later this year, and also various coaching options and things like that if you're interested. Okay, let's get started. So we've got some Dark Elves who are kicking in this first drive, and have some Khemri, rookie team, so no skills on the Khemri, and the Dark Elves have got one Blitzer with dodge, one loner lineman, and a Blitzer missing the game. So I'll just set up like this. Three in the middle, just try and minimise hits, and these guys out here slightly wide, just try and take advantage of any kind of blitz or just a fail pickup really with Khemri. There's every chance that might happen. So if they're just edging slightly wide, there's a chance of running through, and because they're elves, they can always recenter. If not, kick. Okay. So, weather's fine. The Khemri team actually spent 60k of their treasury to buy a wizard for this game, which is never something you like to see, but I guess we're going to have to deal with that. My main way of trying to worry about that is just try and turn them over in the first half if I can, and then maybe they'll have to burn their wizard on that. If it's still alive when I'm driving in the second half, it might be quite problematic, so we're going to have to see if we can turn them over. Okay, so the ball's deep enough that you can take on those blocks early, that's fine, and then he's being quite cautious with his positioning just until the ball's secure. I think that's all fine. Not following up on this guy with a Tomb Guardian is a mistake. You want to try and tag as many people as possible, because I'm going to have a very hard job getting 2 dice on any of these Tomb Guardians at any point. So he should probably be pushing forward, at least with that one guy. Not sure where that guy's going. You want to, try and have you guys reasonably close together. So what I'm going to do here is I am just going to set up a basic line defense, and then just see what the other team, the Khemri team, does. They're quite slow. They've got very little ability to dodge, so I'm just going to see if I can slow them down for a couple of turns and see if I can get an advantage, or see if they make a mistake. Hopefully I should be able to do that without making too many dodge rolls or using a team reroll, and so then we'll see where we are in a few turns. Just trying to see how my opponent plays for at least this one turn, maybe 2 or 4, 3 more. So I'm just moving all players before I roll any dice, even though it's just going to be a 2 dice block. Blitzing with the block guy, obviously. Leaving this guy here because I want to prevent them making as much forward movement as possible. So you don't have to have them all in a nice symmetrical line. You can just, there's a little gap here. I can't put anybody there because these people are in the way, but because there's this gap here, I can have one guy further forward on this side, which makes it just that tiny bit harder for him to make any forward movement on this side, so that's fine. A good nice thing to do when you're doing a line defense with Dark Elves, if you can, if you have spare players left, is just to have a couple of guys hanging back just behind the line, and that means on your next turn you can redeploy them without them getting tagged or having dodge rolls to make. And finally, last things last, making a dodge roll with the loner. And again, this guy's just coming back here. He's bolstering the line, but he's also completely free. There's absolutely no way he can get tagged next turn, so I can just put him wherever I want next turn and just fill in gaps in the line. So let's see. Let's see what the Khemri team does. Let's see what their plan is for breaking this defensive line. It's quite a common thing with Dark Elves, just to play a cautious turn or two just to see how things develop. and then perhaps be a bit more aggressive later on. That's one of the fun things about Dark Elves in particular, more so than any other elf team, is that they can play both ways. They can play in all the ways. They can play very standoffish. They can get stuck in and put a lot of pressure on. That's quite fun, being able to switch between the two. Okay, so this is part of why I stood off in the first turn, just to get a little bit of extra information about my opponent and what he's doing, what he likes to do, and how he's playing. And we can see here he's not really not making enough forward pressure. There's no reason for these Tomb Kings to be at the back of the cage. You should have all 4 Tomb Kings right at the front of the cage. Okay, so the foul, but also sent off, so that's a trading alignment for a skeleton. That's fine. Don't mind that too much. 10v10 is actually better for an elf team than 11v11. So that's not the end of the world. It's only about a hit as well, so okay. So these Tomb Kings should be a square further forward. If when you want to push people back, you want to make 2 squares every turn. And that way, if you make 2 squares every turn for 8 turns, that's 16 squares. There's only 13 squares and a half. That means you're going to be in the end zone. You're going to score a touchdown. So every turn, you're going to be, when you're playing the Khemri team or a bash team, you want to be trying to make 2 squares per turn. With this cage here, he's making 1 square per turn. I can just set my line up here along this line rather than here along this line, and that's only 1 square, which is fine, because 8 times 1 is only 8, which is not 13, which means he won't score. So if this pattern of play continues, he's not going to score. So I'm just going to continue doing this and make him do something different. Also, he's not putting any pressure on. He's not making my Dark Elves make any dodge rolls. I've got 1 dodge roll this turn, and I don't have to make that. I don't have to roll it. Okay. Yeah, so I've got this 1 dodge roll here that I have to make, but I can leave that till last. I can just use all of these other guys, draw the line of defence up, and then at the very last thing I've made that dodge. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then I don't need to use a reroll. So let's get started. You may be wondering why I am lining up this defence here, rather than against an elf team. You'd probably want to double bank, so have 1 guy there, 1 guy there, or if there was frenzy, have 3 people here, just to stop them dodging a guy through. Because it's Khemri, and they're so slow and so clumsy, I don't need to worry about that. And I'm actually using this as a little bit of a tempter, see if he wants to do something a little bit risky, try and get a guy on the sideline, and then maybe I can get a surf out of it. It's just a very minor thing. Okay, so because I've got lots of players left, I can actually be a little bit greedy and then try and get this extra block here on this skeleton. So I'm just going to blitz one of these skeletons here and get that block as well on. And luckily it gets me an injury, which is awesome, and no regen, so that's great. So this is a classic example of how to defend with an elf team against a slow team. You want to have a line defense on one side, and then you want to be squeezing them in on the other side. So they bunch themselves in a little bit too much, and so you can defend half the pitch. You've got your 5 players here that can defend, and then you can use your other players further forward here, and luckily they could take blocks, but if not, then they could just push further forward. So what is happening from the Khemri's point of view is that they've come down one sideline, and then they're getting blocked off. So what you would want to do in that situation is re-centralise to make the Dark Elves cover the full width of the pitch. That's going to make me commit more resources. If he puts pressure on, make more dodge rolls, and that's going to be a lot harder for me to defend. So what I'm doing is I'm preventing the Khemri from recentering on their next turn, and that's why these guys are a bit further forward than you might expect. The temptation might be to just line up all the way along the pitch along this one line, so where the line is on this left hand side of the pitch, to defend the whole width of the pitch along that line. But that is not as effective as what we're doing here by just boxing them in and like enveloping them round and trying to push them further back. This one guy, this might look like a bit of a weakness, but this one guy has got blodge, and although he can be blitzed, the Khemri can't get through that gap. Even if this guy goes there, blitzes him, gets the POW, kills him, he's still not making any forward momentum because these two guys are still covering this gap, so he can't get the cage through or the ball through unless he wants to make 7 4 or 5 up dodges in his turn, which he's not going to do. I can also, if I can dodge this guy, I can make it doubly sure, but even if this dodge fails, I'm in a situation where this is still a strong defense. Luckily the dodge works and I can double bank it, but if that had failed, I wouldn't have rerolled it. Sort of been in a reasonable position. Okay, so good on my opponent. He has twigged that the previous turn was not going to be working for him, like just moving 1 square forward, so he's moving 2 squares forward and trying to put some pressure on. And that's absolutely right. Just these two strength 5 guys are just going to be impossible for, well, not impossible, but really, really hard for Dark Elves to deal with. There's no way I'm going to be able to block them backwards on a regular basis. Maybe I can do it once if I commit all of my resources, but I've got to defend for another 5-6 turns, so that's just not going to work. That's one of the benefits of putting the Witch Elf on the second line of defence, is that if the Bash team, or Khemri in this case, push forward and push onto that player, I have the dodge skill to dodge away. So I'm now in a situation where I can just put my defence up as I was previously doing, and I'm having to make only 2 dodges, so 1 with a dodge skill. So that means, and basically that's almost making no dodges. Like one dodge with dodge skill and 1 that really doesn't matter. It's a loner. I'm never going to rely on that, and I can form my defence without having to make any dodge rolls at all. A much better plan from the Khemri would be to be putting a bit of pressure on, not caging with all 8 guys in one little block. He needs to be, moving some of these other Khemri guys over to pressure my other players and make them make dodge rolls. I only have 2 players to dodge. Just tagging up a couple of linemen with a 2 king would be an excellent use of resources. So as you can see, as you might have seen the pattern of play the last few turns, is that I'm using the players who aren't tackle zones to fill in the basic defence, and then later on in the turn making the dodge rolls only after that, rather than just relying on this 2-up dodge with reroll. I don't have to rely on it, so that's quite easy to do, and you would normally be quite happy to make that, but in this situation I don't even have to take that risk, so I'm quite happy to leave that till last. Again, you can see I've got this guy further forward than the line. Again, just trying to box them in, stop the Khemri from recentering, keep them tied up on this line of defence. I've given up 2 squares this turn, but because I gave up 1 in a previous turn, I've got the potential to try and still just stop the scoring by lining out. So I don't have to panic this stage and change my plan particularly. Luckily I had I was on that previous turn I was a man up, so I was quite happy to see how things go. With that KO, now we're level players, 9 each, and so the decision making might have to change. Might have to see whether I need to be more aggressive. Unfortunately for me, the Khemri of this turn have done the same thing. They've not pressured fully. Just given me the opportunity to only give up 1 square of territory. So I'm just going to return to my original plan of just doing my line defence. It's all going to work quite well this turn. Again, watch out on the second line. Great use of dodge skill there. Again, using this little sideline very slight weakness to try and tempt them into getting themselves served. I'm using my blitz a lot with this guy on players that sometimes even got guys next to them in previous turns anyway. That's because the benefit of this huge cage from the Khemri's point of view is I've got very limited opportunities to blitz, very few players I can actually hit. So it does have that small benefit. It's probably not the opportunity cost of not having these two Tomb Kings causing havoc is not worth it, but it is reducing my blitz opportunities. Again, as you can see, we've got keeping our line of players 2 squares apart. So there's gaps of 2 here between these guys, which means that when the Khemri can move forward, they're going to be one-on-one-ing. So the worst thing that can happen for me is if he pushes all his Khemri forward and starts tagging 2 strength 3 players with one of his strength 5 players. That means that I either have to move another guy in, or 2 guys in to try and get any kind of block on that guy, or I need to make 2 dodge rolls to get those 2 players back into position. Both of those are really difficult situations for a rookie Dark Up team to deal with, so I am going to leave these 2 gaps so hopefully it's one-on-one, and then that gives me a lot more wiggle room. Again, just keeping this pressure on this right hand side, stopping them recentering. And again, just I managed to get that dodge on that spare guy, and I'm just bringing him back here so that he's completely free next turn, regardless of what the Khemri do, almost. And then he can go wherever I want him to next turn. That's the kind of thing that when you are, a couple of players down, you might not have the luxury of doing that, but when things are going well, you can do that. Okay, so the Khemri's gone. Has realised that he needs to be pushing forward. I'm now in a situation where I'm going to have to defend for 3 more turns. And if I got 2 squares per turn, I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go there. So that means that my plan of lining up in defence is not going to work if the Khemri team is smart enough to push forward like this each turn. However, so I'm going to have to change my plan here, which is fine because this cage is now quite weak to pressure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jam all of my guys in on this cage and then make him roll a load of dice. He's only got 1 player with block, I think, on his team. So as you can see, I've got 7 of my guys marking 5 of his guys over here, which means that even with the blitz action somewhere, one of these guys isn't going to be able to hit. One of these guys, he won't be able to move out of the way. So that's quite a huge, big amount of pressure. This is the danger of getting your cage too boxed in, too squeezed in like this. It needs to be a bit more spread out than that. Otherwise, even a Dark Elf team can just pressure you and cause positional problems. So he's in the Khemri turn, even if he blocks all these players and knocks all of them over, he's not actually making any forward momentum. He needs to be blocking players, knocking them over, and at least stunning them, and potentially getting them off the pitch to be making any kind of forward progress. So the worst case scenario for me is that he knocks a couple of these guys out, or gets a couple off the pitch, sorry, and doesn't actually move the cage forward. So best case scenario is that his cage completely crumbles here. So that's what we're going to have to do. Make him make some decisions. The more dice rolls he has to make, the better. So yeah, he's failed a block with that block, but it's probably due. Again, I've marked these Tomb Kings at the back here because I don't want them pressing forward and getting involved with the front of the cage. So my opponent's made the mistake of leaving these 2 guys at the back, and so I'm just happy to mark them and take the block because this is an important turn, and I want to isolate these other 2 Tomb Guardians and potentially have a chance to get into the ball next turn, depending on how things pan out. as you can see, like my opponent's rolling 1 dice blocks. That was a double skulls, but a 1 dice block without a reroll left, and a 1 in 9 block without a reroll left. Like just that little bit of pressure forced him into making some tough decisions, and luckily enough for me, it worked out. So it's quite bunched in. It's quite bunched in now, and there's lots of opportunities for chain pushes, and I'm just trying to work out, or I was trying to work out at the start of this turn, what chance there was of trying to get this ball carrier out and trying to blitz him. And I decided that I had a reroll on hand, so I would have a little bit of a nibble and see if I could get this ball down. Bearing in mind that the wizard was still a problem, so I'm trying to get him to use that in this drive. This is it's a slightly risky turn. I'm not going to roll a few 3-ups, but the value of getting this right is pretty high. If I'd have failed one of these and had to reroll it, then I would have probably changed my plan and maybe gone for a little bit more repositioning, or just jammed everyone back in again and forced him to do stuff. So yeah, I'm just trying to get rid of this corner of the cage, and so hopefully I can get this ball carrier out. So yeah, 3 1 dice blocks, a little bit cheeky, but obviously I would have changed my plan if one of them had failed rather than just kept going, but lucky enough they worked, so I managed to push the ball carrier out. And now in doing so, I've pushed him into a position where I have an assist on him, so I can get a 2 dice block. So I'm going to do that with a block player, so move the Witch Elf round to cover the assist that would then be created, and get my 2 dice block in. So pretty happy with that turn. Everything worked perfectly, and I'm reasonably happy. Him catching the ball was interesting. I'm not sure it's the best place, but it's definitely cool. It's definitely okay to have it. But he is going to get smacked to all hell next turn. But yeah, that's cool. Turn over the ball. Very happy with that. Let's see what my opponent does. Probably should be standing up that guy first, but never mind. Luckily for me, it takes him a few blocks to get rid of this guy. So, we'll have to see where the bounce goes. Oh, a little bit of bingo, fail catches. But the ball bounces very nicely. Only 1 tackle zone. That's great for me. And because I got a couple of stuns, this is the big danger of Khemri. If the ball goes down, you are very, very you have a very hard time reacting and trying to get the ball back. There's very little chance of dodging or all that kind of stuff. You're very just limited to blocks to try and get the ball back. So it's now often 7, so I'm just trying to get the ball and then set up a score for next turn. So I'm going to get the ball on my blodger, run it over here, and then get the switch off into range if I can get the cage working. So I decided to follow up there and give myself a 2-up dodge with dodge rather than move the extra square of movement. So it would have been 1 for the block, 2, 3. But I can go 2, follow up 1. Dodge for 2, so that saves me a square of movement, which gets me into a better position here where I can actually cage. If the ball carrier is here, it's much harder for me to cage because I have to deal with this guy. I'm going to try and do that anyway, but it commits me to doing it. So now I'm just going to try and make a cage or a screen. Make a cage or a screen with my players in such a way that the wizard isn't going to be completely cataclysmic. So that's why this guy's over here. And now I try and get the witch up into range. Only once I'm covered. And then I still had the rear on hand, so I did a couple of cheeky go for it's here. Wouldn't have done that otherwise. But again, just trying to, using all of these guys to try and make it so that if I just tried to make like a normal cage here, it would have been a big fireball target, and there would have been a chance that maybe he could have, you know, gone through. These guys are still in range, but luckily I forced my opponent into making the using the wizard. It's quite an effective wizard there, lightning bolt, killing the witch elf, but luckily the apple worked, and so she'll be back for the second half. Okay, so we'll just skip through this. Nothing much happens, just exchange of blocks, and nobody dies. So we'll just try and get through to the second half. Okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, so this is one of the big mistakes that I'm guilty of making against a big bash team like this, is that he's got these high strength guys on the line, and there's a chance I can block them. You know, I can put a block player there, a couple of assists in, like a one dice block with block. But that's actually not really too great a use of resources. I've only got 2 rerolls left. It's a hit on an armor 9 player, so the chances of killing it are really quite low. But the cost of bunching all my players like this, and then my opponent rolling a perfect defense or a blitz, is absolutely huge. In the past, I've lost all sorts of games just from doing that one thing, from getting slightly greedy, trying to take a couple of blocks on the line against, you know, Black Orcs or Nova Warriors or whatever, bunching all my elves together, and then perfect defense just absolutely kills you. You're just in so much trouble from it. It's just not worth the risk. It's much better spreading my players out like this, so I can be reactive on my first turn and stop them bunching me in, squeezing me in, causing lots of pressure. Reroll for kickoff, that is awesome. A rookie Dark Elf team will always take that. So as always, cover the ball before we do anything else. It's far enough back that I don't have to worry about anything else yet, so I can just do other stuff. So I just put my 1 dodge guy on the line there to mark all those guys in case of a blitz. So I was covering the blitz turn by putting a guy I could easily get out in that square, so keep all those guys from reacting on a blitz turn. And get a guy back to cover, and then we'll take this blitz on. Okay, so I've rolled a double skull, but that's fine. I'm just going to have to suck it up. It's turn 1. It's not positionally vital. I'm just going to have to eat that. There's nothing you can do about that. It's just a case of bad luck. Let's just fight.
Is approximately the same size as his entire opponent.
Luckily enough, it was a dodge player that got left in contact, and he managed to survive. So we'll take that. So this is what I'm going to do now is a classic example of screening with my Dark Elves. So I'm not going to put them in a cage because I don't want to give my opponent the opportunity to just steam into the cage, put a load of attack on themselves on, make me dodge every turn. I'm going to make a screen instead and just plop my ball carrier behind it. Because the ball's safe, I decided to try to save this guy from being surfed before I do anything else. So I just made my formation, and then I went for this. I went for the block here because there's an upside. It's a 3-up dodge or 3-up, although with reroll or a 1 dice block. But I decided that I'd take that. If it's a skull, I'll just take the skull. If it's a skull, I'm not getting surfed, so it's like a 100% success rate almost action. Lucky enough, just got the push, so I'll just run this guy back. That's great. We're getting a little screen, which you may notice looks almost identical to the way we set up our team on defence. Okay, and so that's the Witch Elf with the ball, just hiding back here. And we've got a layer of 2 guys screening off in front of her, and she's completely safe. Because I'm playing a slow team like Khemri, although she's like slightly exposed at the back here, there's no way of them getting behind the lines, no way of getting any way to hit her. So if that's not going to happen, then I can also protect the front and stop her even being tagged, even being marked. And even though she's got dodge, you don't want to be relying on that kind of stuff. And it de-incentivizes your opponent from even trying. So when I'm playing a slow team, I'm just going to play quite. I'm trying to get 8 turn drive out of this game so I can win the game 1-0. And so the best way of doing that is just to be quite cautious. KG, I'll start off my drive and then just try and find an angle. I'm playing a slow team like Khemri. Once they commit to one particular part of the pitch, I can use my great speed and agility to move to the other side of the pitch and then just run away. So that's why we're in a vaguely central position, and we're just looking to see what can we do and trying to find a gap, see where they go. So yeah, on this turn, I'm just gonna do exactly the same thing. Just try and create a screen and take areas of the pitch with my players. Just make little bunkers, or not bunkers, but just like take ground with my players so that I can use it as a place to move around or pivot around in future turns. So that's why this guy's moving forward here. I'm not rigidly sticking to this symmetrical formation of screening. This is still a screen because the Khemri can't blitz this guy, so there's no way that they can blitz. They need to blitz 2 players to mark the ball carrier. So this guy and one of these 2 guys. So he is still providing an effective screen. So because there's a little gap here, because the Khemri have left a gap and not push forward, which is fine. You don't want to push too far forward because the Dark Art's going to run around the back. I can just move this guy slightly further forward and take this bit of space, and then I can use that in future turns potentially. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here, just moving this guy slightly further forward, looking to find a space in my future turns where I can, swing around and use these guys. The further forward they are, the more they can get into his half in future turns. And then finally, I'm just going to run my blodge player through, just as a decoy, basically. A slightly less experienced coach may think that I'm running him through as a receiver, literally just trying to score in the next turn or 2, just trying to hand the ball off pass to him and run away. I'm not doing that. I'm just using it to try and commit some of his players. And so if he commits players to this guy, they're not going to be in a different part of the pitch, and so that should leave a gap somewhere. I mean, he's got Blodge, hopefully he'll survive, and in doing so, create gaps that I can exploit with my Dark Elf team. I couldn't move this guy until I'd moved that guy because he was taking that space up, which is why that was a slightly out of order action. So unfortunately, Blodge did not work, but that's fine. He took a few dice in an earlier turn and survived. So he was probably due. He's taken more than 6 dice now, so that's fine. Looks like my Khemri opponent is quite keen to have a bit of a foul, which is quite scary with the Apo used, but luckily he survives. But that's great. I mean, this is perfect for me. He's committed all his players into a big central area, which means that these flanks are both wide, which is exactly what I want to be happening. It's turn 4 of my drive. This is the turn where I want to make some sort of forward momentum. If you go too early, they can pressure you and force you to score early. But turn 4, 5, that's the perfect turn for me to be making a rush into their half. So this sideline is well open, and so that's what I'm going to do. Leaving this Tomb being isolated means that I can actually get 2 dice in it, which is great. I'm marking these 2 guys because this is one of the basic tactics when you're committing to a sideline, is to commit your cage, move your guy along, and then mark a couple of the strong players that could potentially pressure your cage in the future turn. So I'm going to hit this one Tomb Guardian, I'm going to mark these 2 over here, and then I'm going to leave this one who's furthest away on his own, and in that way I'm taking those 3 Tomb Guardians out of the turn for this next turn, and that'll hopefully allow me to make further progress into this sort of area, hopefully in my next turn. So that's not something I want to do every turn of the game because all my dark elves will die. But for the one crucial turn, brilliant. Okay, well I got a KO there, which is just, you know, you're not playing for that, but it's brilliant when it happens. So yeah, take it. I was assuming when I got the knockdown, I assumed he'd just go down the floor, so I pushed him here, so he was only marking 1 guy when he stood back up. Not sure about this blitz from my opponent. He's decided he's gonna foul this splodge guy again, which this is a mistake. We'll say it's a mistake. If he gets sent off here, then like all of his dudes are just like stood in a square, and I can just run my guys over here. I just win there basically. Journeyman's dead, fine. This is why you can't do that, marking the 2 Guardians every turn. It's not going to work long term, but we took the risk of us all dying for that one particular turn, just so we could like cement our position. Yeah, so my opponent's going to be able to move these 4 guys back and form a defence, which is slightly frustrating. After that, you know, glaring error with the foul, but that is fine because he's giving a little gap there. Yeah, so yeah, but again, that's a little bit of a mistake, just leaving a gap in the lines. Got a little bit excited about the foul, I guess. Then didn't do the defence properly. I've got 3 rerolls left, so I was happy to commit to a turn involving 1 2-up dodge to cement the cage. I thought the extra movement forward is probably going to be worth it. You can see I'm not creating a standard like tight X cage. I'm doing this slightly spread screenish cage, and that's for normal reasons with elves. You don't want to be bunching in, you don't want to be giving your opponent the opportunity to surround you. The further apart my guys are, the more difficult it is for him to mark everybody. So if this guy was here, he could get us 2 Guardian round to mark both of them, but now he's going to need 2 players to mark these two players of mine, which is just a lot better for me. The most important part of this kind of thing is giving me a square to dodge out to on a 2+ next turn. So it's very, very likely that I'm going to get out-muscled. And so I have to dodge with my war carrier next turn, and so what I'm trying to do with this cage is to leave a spot that my opponent can't cover, so I can just dodge out on 2+ somewhere next turn. And this is where I make a mistake, because this guy should have been there, because this is the easy dodge out. So I created this little screen around the ball, around the cage, and then should be very difficult for my opponent to get to him to mark him, and then that'll give the Witch Elf a dodge out here. So should the Khemri blitz this guy and then steam in here and mark all these guys, then I can just dodge backwards out and just come around here. But I've made a mistake. I've put the guy there rather than there. It's a double mistake because he can move Tomb Guardian in and mark both of them together. So I have 2 for 1 trade, which is bad for me. This guy should definitely be here. It was a misclick rather than anything else, but yeah, still a mistake. And last thing last, just do a little bit of a cheeky extra guy. If you can make the dodge, that's great. If he doesn't, no reroll. And we are about to see how much damage you can do just by one slight positional error. So my opponent's going to steam in here and just get everybody stuck in, and it's going to be actually really quite effective. Mainly because I didn't move this guy into the right place, this one lineman at the back. Yeah, and this is what you're trying to avoid with Dark Elves, is everyone getting tagged up and giving you situations where you have to make numerous dice rolls. So you can see, like, basically every other turn in the game I've been able to make safe dice rolls, not have to commit to any dice roll. Making any single dice roll, like, deadly important, like have the game hang on it. But this turn, because of that positional error, I'm now in a bad spot. I can't get rid of this guy without committing all my players to it, which I don't want to do because that's going backwards. That's going to leave me very little place to cage. So I'm going to have to commit to a couple of dodges with the Witch Elf, or with several players. So here I'm just trying to set up a blitz with this blitzer. So when I get 2 assists to cancel that 1 assist, and then I'm going to blitz with him and dodge out, and then form the rest of the cage. The Witch Elf's going to end up over here somewhere. So I'm doing that bit first, just see if I can use a reroll. So I've got a dodge roll with the Witch Elf. So should that fail, and then I have to use a dodge roll on getting away here, then I have to change my plan. And I've got these 2 guys here, this guy with dodge and this guy here, who can run back here, and these guys can cover. So I'm doing this bit first just to see whether the reroll gets used. She needs somewhere to run to. Yeah, unfortunately I failed the first one, used a dodge roll, failed the second one, used a team reroll, but hopefully that ordering's okay. I got it the second time round. Okay, so now she's up here, I can move this guy around to form the back of the screen. Get this dodge player back round. Mark him. Unfortunately, I want to 9 that block to leave this guy still next to the cage, but thankfully I make the final dodge, so I can get myself into a reasonable position, and then fail that final dodge. But yeah, you can see there just how big one small positional error can be. If I just move that one lineman 1 square further to the left on my previous turn, I would have the whole turn would have been a cakewalk. I could have made 1/2 up dodge with the Witch Elf. I had a couple of extra linemen free, not making dodges. Could have just had a lovely little screen over here, and it would have been a very simple turn. No rerolls involved probably, but that one small positional mistake put me under a lot of pressure, or let my opponent put me under a lot of pressure. Thankfully he didn't spot the way in, which was to use this blitzer to 1 dice this guy, and then there would have been a gap through to blitz the ball carrier, but unfortunately he moved a guy in to get the assist, which blocked him off. So I was lucky there that my opponent didn't spot that. Okay, so he's again just jamming all his dudes in. This is what you can do on the Khemri could have done on his offense as well. Spread the play a little bit more. Use these Tomb Kings as spoilers. Try and tag players up. Make me make dodge rolls every turn. Make it a lot more difficult for me to get my line defense up. Okay, so I'm just going to score on this turn, I've decided that I could cage. It's relatively easy to get the Witch Elf over here, but I'm going to have to make a couple of dodge rolls without dodge to make it even vaguely safe. And then, even if that works, he can still tag the Witch Elf, and that's leaving me a 2 of the reroll to score, which is, 1 in 36 chance of scoring, and I have to weigh that up against the chance of how likely is it that the Khemri are going to score with 8 players, potentially 8 or 9 players in 2 turns themselves. And I think that in this case I don't want to risk that series of dodges. I'll just take the score, and then hopefully I can stop him scoring on his drive, and that is 1-0. We won't go through his drive. He doesn't get anybody nearly in range, and so it's just a bit of a damp squib of a drive. He does not get anywhere near close to scoring. So it was finished 1-0 to the Dark Elves. So hopefully you enjoyed that game. I think whilst my opponent wasn't necessarily the strongest, I think it gave a really good idea of the shape of how you should play with elves. So the fact that I was given a little bit of latitude to do what I wanted, I think was a really good teaching tool or example for like how you want to set your play up both on offense and on defense with an elf team, particularly Dark Elves, but any elf team really would work like this. And so hopefully you enjoyed this and maybe learned something even. And well, that's it. Hopefully see you again next time.